Good morning and welcome to a live training session from Munich's Siebener Street. 2 days to go before Bayern Munich play the last home game of the season against Mainz. And most players are on the pitch here in front of you. I'll go into a little more detail who's here and who isn't as we go along. It's sad but true, this will be the last live training session we can bring you this season, bar any unforeseen events of course, but there will only be one more team training session for Pep Guardiola's boys, and that's tomorrow morning on Saturday. Then Bayern Munich play the home game against Mainz. After that there'll be a big party and celebration with the fans initially, and then later on with the team to celebrate the 25th Bundesliga championship. And then on Sunday Bayern Munich present this trophy to the fans that were unable to be in the stadium. Traditionally they always do that on the balcony of Munich's City Hall. So 3 more days basically, and then the season is over for most players, that is. We're, to be quite honest, a little bit in the dark ourselves right now what is actually going to happen to these players. You can see of all these Bayern players here, there are only about 5 or 6, without having counted that now, who don't play for national teams anymore. Some like Philipp Lahm and Xabi Alonso who have retired. Others are younger players. But for players like Jerome Boateng, for instance, David Alaba, who's on the far right, who returned to team training yesterday. The question is if their national team coaches still need them or not. In 2 weeks, and then in the following few days, there are all kinds of test games and also European Championship qualifiers. We'll see. I don't expect, for instance, Manuel Neuer to be a part of the Germany team that plays a test game against the US and then a qualifier against Gibraltar. Joachim Löw, the German national team coach, has announced, but this is a while back, that he will rest all of his or most of his world champions, and that basically applies to all of the German Bayern internationals. But then what the other national team coaches will do remains to be seen. So could still be a while for the odd player before he can actually start his holiday. For all the others, the holidays start basically Sunday night after the end of the championship celebrations. The holiday then continues on until July 1st, when most players return, and then again the official date for the 11th of July is when the players return. However, again, we'll have to wait and see which players actually fall under that category. Again, this applies to the players who can't start their holiday in 2 weeks' time. As you see, most players out on the pitch. Tom Starke and Manuel Neuer both training in goal, as is Pepe Reina, who's come back from injury. The big news, I suppose, of course, for this week is that David Alaba, who's in the background here, returned to training. So now that the season's over, you might say sarcastically, finally most Bayern players return to training. Of course, still a few players missing. They'll use the summer break, hopefully, to return to full fitness. And then it'll be interesting and exciting to see what Pep Guardiola, what Matthias Sammer, Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, Michael Reschke come up with, how they intend to approach the new season, how many changes there will be. As always, when a season ends at Bayern Munich, there is all kinds of speculation. There's nothing new there. A couple players rumored to leave the club, others rumored to maybe even extend their contracts. We'll see. One more game to go again on the weekend. against Mainz. Here on the right, you just saw one of the young players who made an impact in the last couple of weeks, Lukas Görtler, still a reserve team player, but also a bit of a Bayern Munich hero for scoring the winning goal in the reserve team derby recently. Then Mitchell Weiser, who's played some really good performances in recent weeks, is one of those candidates. A little uncertain what will happen. Claudio Pizarro's contract expires. The decision what will happen there will also be in the next week or two. Here are Mitchell Weiser and Sebastian Rode. Juan Bernat in the background, the man with the most minutes for Bayern Munich this season. Here's a little bit of German precision for you. 2,466 minutes this season for Juan Bernat. Most minutes, most, not games in theory, but most minutes played for Bayern Munich. The second most was Robert Lewandowski, 2,408. Those two players with most time spent on the pitch. A couple others like David Alaba injured this season. Sebastian Rode, a player who looks back on a successful first season at Bayern Munich. And then again, some hopefuls like Gianluca Gaudino, of course. I'm sure they'll try to use the summer break to get a little closer to the pro team, to where a player like Bastian Schweinsteiger is. For instance, his 500th game coming up for Bayern Munich. Quite a benchmark for the god of football, as the Bayern fans call him. Here is the popular rondo exercise, one in which we can always enjoy the ball handling skills. It's an interesting group here with some young and some established players. Alaba, Schweinsteiger, Bernat. Here's a South American or foreigner group with Peperina, Thiago, Dante, Alonso, Rafinha, Benatia, Pizarro and Martinez. Good to see that all of those players are back on the pitch. What a season it's been here. Thiago passes the ball to Javi Martinez. We've waited an awful long time to see that. Claudio Pizarro, lots of minor injuries this season. The same goes for Mehdi Benatia, who had all kinds of problems ever since he joined Bayern Munich. And of course, here everyone's hoping that, given a good pre-season preparation and diligence in the holidays, that we can enjoy the football of these class players a little more often next season. As you can see, always a lot of discussions going on during this exercise. Rafinha is a candidate who, on the one hand, takes this very seriously, on the other hand, really enjoys it and can't stop commenting on what goes on around him. Speaking of which, you, of course, can feel free to comment on anything you see. If you have any questions, please post them, and I'll try to answer them to my best knowledge. And of course, since it is the last training session, the last live training session that we can bring you this season, you can also comment on how you like that, if you'd like to see more of these, if there's anything specifically that we can do to bring you a little closer to Bayern Munich. A lot of fans ask us, and I can preempt this question already, why we don't do this more often. Everyone who has a closer look at the schedule of Bayern Munich will realize there are few opportunities to do these live training sessions, particularly towards the end of the season, March and April, where the team basically plays 2 to 3 games every single week, which means there are very, very few public training sessions. And of course, we are only able to show you the public training sessions and not the let's say, secret tactical exercises. Quite a few fans here at the training facilities. It's another thing that we like to encourage the Bayern fans to do. If you ever have the opportunity, check out the training times on the website and find out if they're public or not. It's always worth coming here, getting a closer look at the Bayern stars, and quite a few fans do that quite regularly.
My face on the back. Zoom.
Que no la pierdas y lo pases de mierda. Dale. Está clavado ahí. Está marcando. Está marcando. Es propiedad privada eso. Ha sido rápida, Pero el arroba Tiago, ¿no? ¿Cierto? Había metido dos seguidas. Oh, ist der Scheiße, du!
Komm mal, streng dich an!
Eins, zwei, beide, drei, vier, fünf, sechs, sieben, acht, neun, 10, ciao! 13, 14, 15. ¡Ay! Javier. Oh, no me mires. Oh, qué una, ayuda. ¿Qué? ¿Por qué? ¡Ay, pequeño! Juro por Dios. Ya voy a abrir uno, ¿por qué? Vamos a ¡hola! Para, ¿por qué? ¿Por qué abrir uno? No fue más, ¿Eso yo qué he hecho? ¡Vaya! ¡Medi! ¿Qué pasa? Ya.
So as you can see, always a lot of chitter chatter, a lot of smiles. Players that love this kind of an exercise, but if you look at the speed with which some of these passes are played, you'll realize there's also not only an element of skill in this, but an element of passion and of competitiveness. Usually anything above 20 contacts is considered a bit of a humiliation for the players in the center. Just see here the ball handling skills. Right now he's in the center, but even if a player in goal like Peperina, pretty outstanding. Rafinha is one of these players I love to watch here. He hardly ever has to actually defend in the group. He knows exactly what he's doing. And here's the exception, obviously, while I mention it. We're already at the 28, I think, here, much to the delight of the players outside. Martinez finally loses it, but this was around 30. And of course, Rafinha in the midst of a discussion immediately. Nothing new there. Manuel Neuer usually a part of these what are called rondo at Bayern Munich now, and the ball is played around a small group. We recently saw a very interesting version of this rondo at the Barcelona training. Not sure how serious that exercise was when the entire squad played in one group. They made a huge circle, and I think they had maybe 4 or 5 players sprinting after the ball in the center. How they ever got the ball is a mystery to me, but Manuel Neuer obviously focusing these last couple of days on some goalkeeping exercises. He had some very minor injury problems recently, but obviously didn't miss any games. But again, usually he's a part of these passing exercises, as we all know very well. The sweeper keeper, as he's called, needs to not only practice his goalkeeping skills, but also his ball handling skills, and he does that very well. Tom Starke back from injury as well, another player who's had a bit of a difficult season. Missed the winter break due to injury. Was injured again recently. Overall, though, Bayern Munich obviously in a good place there with 3 very experienced, good goalkeepers. Javi Martinez, yeah, missed the entire season. Played the Super Cup and sustained a severe injury there. Only returned a few weeks ago. But of course, he was a very important part of Bayern Munich's treble-winning outfit. Won the hearts of the Bayern fans in that season. Tante obviously not happy with this decision. Pep Guardiola with his assistant Dominic Torrent. Guardiola says he's not even thinking about the new season yet, although that might be an answer for nosy journalists who want to know who will join Bayern Munich, who will leave Bayern Munich. Anyway, in the week or weeks after the end of the season, and of course they begin on Monday, Pep Guardiola will get together with the officials, with the club bosses, with Matthias Sammer, with Michael Reschke, who are responsible for the football department, so to speak, and then of course with Karl-Heinz Rummenigge as well. Matthias Sammer stated quite clearly the fact that everyone knows, every Bayern fan knows, it's not only the coach at Bayern Munich who decides who to buy. The club is always more important than the individual. An attitude that Pep Guardiola knows very well and has confirmed and agreed with throughout his 2-year spell. Of course, Pep Guardiola nonetheless has a opinion that counts. Here's Robert Lewandowski, still wearing his protective mask after he broke his nose and jaw and sustained a concussion in the DFB Cup semi-final against his former club Borussia Dortmund. But for all of us who watched him play in the last couple of weeks, quite amazing what these masks can do, and that a player can actually play football after such severe injuries, and only a couple of days later. Takes a few days to get used to. Every pro says that. But after that, you do get used to, you become accustomed to this feeling that it doesn't really bother you anymore. Lewandowski, certainly one of the best new signings at Bayern Munich of the last couple of years. Played a really good, really outstanding season for Bayern Munich. 16 goals in the Bundesliga this season. Overall 24 in 48 games. Not a bad statistic at all for a striker, and if you keep in mind that Lewandowski doesn't play the role that he used to play for Dortmund, where he was the go-to guy up front. That's something that actually has changed at Bayern Munich in the past few weeks with all the injured players. Bayern Munich used Robert Lewandowski a little more than he was used before as a pure striker. For those who saw, for instance, the first half of the season, in many games Robert Lewandowski moved out to the left, created space for the likes of Ribéry, Robben, Alaba, and whoever else pushed forward. Guardiola liked to utilize his pretty amazing ball handling skills. Not only great goal scorer, but of course also a truly first-class football player with great technical skills. There's another one in the background there, Bastian Schweinsteiger, Jerome Boateng. Some key players here on your screen. Sinan Kurt, the front here, is hoping to become one. played one game this season, but of course, every young Bayern player benefits a great deal from the training sessions at Bayern Munich alone. Gianluca Gaudino is a good example. Hasn't played many games for Bayern Munich this season, but when he does play, like nearly all youth players, they just come out of the youth academy at Bayern Munich with fantastic ball handling skills. Of course, it takes time for them to settle into the professional football business, the rhythm, the speed of everything. But when they come out of a half a year or so of Bayern training under Pep Guardiola, they usually know what they're doing. Pep Guardiola and the Bayern players in the last few days and weeks have done their best to, kind of defend this season against criticism. I think at Bayern Munich everyone agrees, and I do believe that 99% of all Bayern fans agree that it was a more than just decent season. Bayern Munich totally dominated the league once more and prematurely secured the 25th Bundesliga title. The first time in German football history that a Bayern team achieves that after a World Championship. So far in the past, Bayern Munich had incredible difficulties after World Championships winning the title. Understandably, if you consider how many Bayern players were crucial for Germany's World Cup success. How many Bayern players consequently had very little holiday, very little time to rest, and didn't enjoy a good pre-season. Still dominated that competition completely, and then made it into the semi-finals of both others. DFB Cup, it's been talked about a lot, and I'm sure you've seen that. Bayern Munich very unlucky to go out against Dortmund on penalties after 120 minutes of football that they dominated, in which they were pretty much the only team creating chances. And then the semi-final of the Champions League against Barcelona, I think, simply came at the wrong time for Bayern Munich. Well, Bayern Munich were in a bit of a slump physically and in terms of the available players. Barcelona on an absolute high, in fantastic form, enjoying great momentum. And I suppose we'll have to admit simply the better team at the time. Still, there's no shame in going out to that team. There's no shame in going out against Borussia Dortmund the way Bayern Munich did. And that makes for a very safe and secure championship and good results in the other competitions. Anything but a shabby season.
Vorsicht, dieser Ball in die Mitte ist gefährlich. Ja. Solo, solo. Zeit, Basti, Zeit! Basti, Zeit! Zeit! Basti! Basti! Gehen, gehen!
For those of you wondering why Thiago is wearing a green shirt, the Bayern fans who watch this training session or watch our live training sessions, they know what it means when a player's on the pitch with a green shirt. Thiago, in this case, is a free agent, joins in the team in possession. So you might ask yourself why he double passes the ball with players in blue shirts and then with players all in red. Again, that's one of the exercises. The team in possession in this scenario always has one man more, always attacks with superior numbers, making it a little harder on the defense. So here he is right now, Thiago playing together with Team Red. As soon as possession turns over, Thiago will be part of Team Blue. Good to see, though, that he is obviously fit, healthy, has no problems, and that's what we've been watching the last couple of weeks. Seems to really have recovered well from his very long injury break. Same goes for Martinez. This is also typical for Pep Guardiola's mode of training. 3 groups of players. Team Red just now, as you saw, competed in a test game. Now comes a specific exercise. I'll say now that it's a fairly uncommon training session, and I think it's obviously something to do with the fact that there are a few left, that these players have gone through a lot of games. They've had to work very hard this season. These are very pleasant exercises for the players. And of course it makes sense for the coaches to do that just before the end of the season. You want these players to be motivated, to be involved and passionate about what they're doing. And there's not much point now in practicing hard, demanding, tactical exercises right now. Nice goal there by Rafinha.
Du warst so hinten gestanden. Thiago. Ball ins Tor. Zeit! Weiter. Basti, vor! Zeit! Hilf! Controla Marco! Du reißt die Qualität! Zeit, solo!
So this training match, in a sense, a typical Pep Guardiola exercise because of a couple of different elements. You'll notice when a team misses the target, for instance, that the goalkeeper immediately throws the ball out to his teammates to start the next attacking move without any hesitation whatsoever. This obviously practices the transitional play of a team. Here's Thiago and Miller maybe with a chance. No, denied by Boateng. So that's one of the elements that distinguish this from a normal training match that maybe you and I would have played or would play. Here again, ball's out of bounds, and Neuer immediately grabs the ball from his goal and plays it out quickly. And then, of course, it's no coincidence that there's always so many players close to the ball. Small field. The players have very little time, very little space, and that helps this one-touch game, the quick passing successions that Pep Guardiola so loves. This season again, Bayern Munich had by far most possession of all Bundesliga teams, most passes, most completed passes, best success ratio in that respect. During this season, there are far more, again, tactical exercises, training games which Pep Guardiola interrupts, where he actually has entire, at least parts of his team, the entire defense against a full attack. Usually extremely animated, very involved, Pep Guardiola. And as you can see here, there's no letting off in any way. Bayern taking this seriously, but that goes without saying. When you watch these players every day, you realize that competitiveness is what got them here in the first place, and they're not prepared to just give up this game. Yesterday, you might have heard there was a bit of a run and a rustle and bustle between Jerome Boateng and Robert Lewandowski, and as is to be expected and as is normal nowadays. Of course, that went through all the media and questions were asked if there's a disciplined problem at Bayern Munich and these two players don't get along with each other. The truth of the matter is that you see scenes like that in every football club several times a season. If anything, it shows that despite the fact that Bayern Munich have already won the championship and are training for the last game of the season, which is, in terms of its competitiveness, of no relevance for Bayern Munich, they're still taking it very, very seriously indeed. Still very competitive, still with tackles in training, still with a lot of hard physical work. Good job here by Pizarro, and then he, as you see, refuses really to get rid of the ball. Alonso angry here. Again, this looks like it's a lot of fun for the players, and it is, but there's also certainly a serious element in here in the sense that these players are all determined to win this game, and they show it. Again, here is a good example. Rafinha misses the target. Immediately Ivan Lukic, the reserve team goalkeeper who's on your left, grabs the ball, throws it out to the next defender. Here's the same thing now. Ball past the target. Peperina doesn't wait at all, but immediately grabs the ball, and he's supposed to do that. That's part of this exercise. Get the ball forward quickly to your teammates, because it forces the team that just missed the chance to regroup as quickly as possible, to get back into position, to anticipate really quickly how the opposition is going to attack. And again, that, of course, benefits the transitional game of the entire team. They need to get used to the fact, A, that there's no time and no space on the pitch, because that's what happens when you're the team that attacks and basically pushes the opponent into his own half all the time. And B, you also need to realize when you miss a chance, there's no time to analyze what went wrong, to mourn the missed opportunity, but you immediately have to pay attention to a counter-attack, to a fast break of the opposition team. That's why there's always a few elements in any exercise, no matter how common it is, that makes sense for the Bayern players and the way they play.
Cuando no te da la pared que llega. Bravo, Claudio. Salió. Go, Gianni.
That goal just now was basically the exercise in perfection. Missed opportunity for Team White, should I call them, or Team Jersey. Peperina fires the ball out quickly to Claudio Pizarro, who's left alone. Team in White is caught off guard after they just missed an opportunity and suffer a goal, and that's how you learn to change things. Philipp Lahm, nice shot against the crossbar here. And in case you're wondering, yes, Philipp Lahm does occasionally score goals in training.
Go, Gianni, go! Gianni! Shot! Vai!
Pep Guardiola, first season domestic double, second season champion, the most successful coach in league history in terms of points collected, in terms of games lost, games won, and so on and so forth. He mentioned it himself in a recent press conference. There's obviously that one regret that he has of this season, and a regret of what happened last season as well. He says we'll just never find out what would have been possible in those seasons if more players had been at our disposal. Of course, that applies particularly to this season. He's a good move by Juan Bernat, just misses the target. As I mentioned earlier, Barcelona came at the wrong time for Bayern Munich this season. It might have all been different with fewer injuries, with a squad that had subsequently been more rested. Bastian Schweinsteiger just took a shot. He had to play an awful lot of games, and of course he is one of these players who didn't really have much of a pre-season. Philipp Lahm, Thiago had to play quite a few games after they returned from injury. Sebastian Rode played quite a few games and then sustained injury, wasn't able to help. Again, Benatia suffering injury. David Alaba out in the last couple of weeks. Martinez still not really, of course, fully fit. He has one exception on the left. As always, Thomas Müller. 21 competitive goals this season. Double digits in goals and assists in the Bundesliga. Yet again, it has to be said, just so incredibly consistent. Really, not only throughout a season, but season for season. And here's a real striker's goal there by Claudio Pizarro, if I'm not mistaken. What a great talent in this Bayern team. But in the last few weeks, they just weren't able really to show it, to obviously show their full potential, with several key players missing. Here's Pizarro again. You shouldn't give him too much space. He's just going to score one after the other. Described by Pep Guardiola only recently as being the best striker Bayern Munich have in the box. Very elegant player, great technique and ball handling skills, but unfortunately, a player who has suffered many injuries this season. Nothing serious, but a whole string of minor injuries that prevented him from playing more than just a couple games this year. 12 games in the Bundesliga for Claudio Pizarro. No goals this season, one assist. Just now, by the way, a pass by Robert Lewandowski to Jerome Boateng. It's not as if they refuse to play with each other. On the contrary. Again, if you watch professional football teams train regularly, you'll realize, again, it's a very, very competitive sport. There's no holding back in these trainings. There are occasional training injuries due to fouls, although of course the players do try to prevent that from happening. But there's no holding back in the sense that you just accept defeat and let players pass you. Thomas Müller, you heard him here, sets up Javi Martinez perfectly and then complains that Martinez didn't score. Here, by the way, this would have been a corner, so to speak. If a defender gets the ball out of bounds for what would have been a corner, then again, the holding team, the team in possession, gets the ball back, but from their goalkeeper, from Manuel Neuer, so they have to start at the back again. And there's Lahm scoring for Team White. In case any of you have kept up with the score, please let me know. I have no idea who's in the lead here. Thomas Müller, always the entertainer. You might have heard that ripple of laughter. Again, lots of fans watching this training session. It's pretty terrible weather in Munich, actually, which explains why there's a lot less fans here today than in some training sessions. You want to see a little more entertainment of Bayern Munich. You can check out the championship celebrations on Sunday, starting at 13 minutes past 1. We expect the Bayern team to be at the City Hall balcony somewhere between then and 2 o'clock. That's also going to be a live stream on this YouTube channel. Always some really fun pictures to watch. You see the players in a bit of a different setting and atmosphere than usual. We have one user question in who says, what's the worst injury a Bayern player had this season? Unfortunately, there were quite a few injuries that proved to be tough for the Bayern players. I don't know how you define what the worst injury is, but if you consider that Martinez was out basically all season, couldn't play football for 8 months, Thiago nearly a year, Holger Badstuber certainly didn't sustain the worst injury of his career this season, but came back after 2 years and sustained 2 more. That's certainly the player in the worst injury situation at Bayern Munich. I suppose being battered by a 9-foot goalkeeper from Dortmund in the cup semi-final, to have a concussion and to have this goalkeeper break your nose and jaw is also not the most pleasant feeling on the planet. But Robert Lewandowski copes. He was described by Matthias Sammer recently as being a bit of an animal, because he didn't hesitate for a second basically, and when asked by the officials, the coaches, the teammates, he never left a doubt that he would keep playing despite this injury. So you can choose your pick, really. Unfortunately for Bayern, there have been quite a few of you who take Franck Ribéry's ankle injury. Certainly nothing as bad as torn ACL, but Ribéry also missing the last 2-3 months of the season. Certainly not the ideal situation there either. And still, just like Arjen Robben, unable to train here today, and of course unable to play the last game of the season. We'll have to wait for those players to return in training to maybe finish this not so pleasant injury topic. In training, the worst injury we experienced was certainly the fractured ankle of Philippe Lahm. That happened in autumn. It was not after a challenge or tackle, but he broke his ankle in training, which was certainly not a pleasant feeling for him, and anything but pleasant to watch for the fans and for us either. He recovered well. When we speak about injuries, let's just hope for one thing, and that is that we have to talk a lot less about injuries. Last season, I think Bayern Munich have had their fill, not only this season but the last already. Take the goalkeeper situation, for instance. Last year, you might recall that last season Bayern Munich had to field reserve team goalkeeper Lukas Reda in a couple of games because Manuel Neuer and Tom Starke sustained injury at the same time. That's why Pep Guardiola and the Bayern bosses decided to get another top goalkeeper in Peperina. And then we nearly had a similar situation this season again. Manuel Neuer had some minor ankle difficulties recently, and thank God they were only minor. But this happened while Peperina was also injured. And of course the season of Peperina started terribly when he played a test game for Bayern Munich at the beginning of the season in mid-August, I think it was, the so-called Paulaner Cup, a sponsor-funded game for Bayern Munich. And in his very first move, while he was trying to kick the ball away, he tore a muscle. Claudio Pizarro missing the target, while Javi Martinez is leading a discussion with assistant coach Hermann Gerland why there wasn't an offside call here. So there's certainly offside, there's fouls here. The assistant coaches aren't just standing around here watching this with huge smiles on their faces, but they actually have a job here, and that is to referee. Although everyone who's been in the club knows that there are certain rules here that don't really apply to normal refereeing. Sometimes the coaches deliberately decide the wrong way just to annoy a player, just to get him angry and frustrated, so that he works even harder.
Sitzer gewinnen, Verteidiger.
The man who just played the pass, called Lucky by his teammates Lukas Görtler. He is one of these young players who featured in a competitive game for Bayern Munich for the first time this season alongside his reserve team colleague Rico Strieder, and made a pretty good impression. And this comes again after Görtler scored a really important game for football fans of Munich. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of the fact that there is a derby played every year here in Munich between the reserve teams of Bayern and 1860, who are both in the 4th division. It might actually change next year. Neither team will achieve promotion. The possibility, though, that the 1860 team will be forced into the 5th league, and that happens if the first team of 1860, if they are relegated from the 2nd league, which is a possibility. In Germany, there's a rule that reserve teams have to be at least 2 leagues apart of their professional team. This is Lukas Görtler in possession right here. That means if 60 are relegated from the 2nd to the 3rd division, their reserve team will automatically be relegated to the 5th division. But in the last few years, there have been very exciting derbies. These games are played in the Grünwalder Stadium, where, as you know, 1860 and Bayern Munich both used to play. It's really a stone's throw away from Munich's Siebener Street, where we are right now. And Görtler became a bit of a fan hero and celebrity within the city limits of Munich, I suppose you could say, when he scored the match winner in the most recent derby. Usually sold out, 12,000 fans come there again, despite the fact that it's 4th division football. Most players here haven't experienced a competitive derby between 1860 and Bayern Munich, and I think it's safe to say those two teams have really never been further apart, as Bayern Munich dominates the Bundesliga probably like they've never done before, while 1860 are, I don't want to say very close to being relegated from the 2nd division, but not far from it. Lukas Görtler with the goal, Thomas Müller with the assist that was worth about 80% of that goal. Here's Ivan Lukic, the reserve team goalkeeper. Team red, I think, is quite obvious from the faces, the reaction. Obviously won this game. I might be wrong. Bit of a break there for some of Bayern's real key players: Alaba, Schweinsteiger, Müller, Neuer, Dante in the background, Javi Martinez. Let's hope that he makes it back into this key player status. Martinez on the left, Schweinsteiger on the right. That was the double six, as it's called in Germany, the two holding midfielders next to each other. responsible for a great contribution to the treble. Typical here that Lukas Görtler and Bastian Schweinsteiger have a chat with each other. Schweinsteiger, always a player to involve the young guns, the youth players. I think you can tell also, if you look at the speed of this game, that these players have been out here for over an hour now. It's really hard to play these games. Again, from up here, it looks as if they're just kicking the ball around in the park a little bit and enjoying themselves, doing what they love to do. The truth is that if you don't have any breaks whatsoever, this gets really hard after a while. In competitive games, usually you always have a bit of time to relax. Of course, maybe not so much the case for a holding midfielder than it is for a defender, but still, you have interruptions, you have throw-ins, you have free kicks. Not here. You can see ball rolled out immediately to Philipp Lahm. From the back again, that would have been a corner. That means Team White stays in possession. So, and here is a little bit of a break, if not even the final call at 12:15. We've been on air for an hour about now to watch Pep Guardiola's second to last training session at Bayern Munich of the 2014-2015 season. The training session tomorrow, I honestly have to say I was a bit surprised about that. It's going to be public again. Here's Thomas Müller pretending to film this group. I think it's pretty obvious who won this little tournament there. Team Red: Bernat Pizarro, Gianluca Gaudino, Rafinha, Alonso, Benatia. The players are leaving the pitch. That means it's all from us here from Munich 7 Street as well. If you happen to be in Munich tomorrow, then you can catch the last training session. As I said, it's unusual, but this Friday training session tomorrow will also be public. Saturday is the last game of the season. After that, the official championship celebrations, first in public in the Allianz Arena with bands, with the trophy being handed over, and so on and so forth. Later on, a players' party, and then on Sunday, big day in Munich as Bayern Munich present the trophy to their fans on the City Hall balcony. You can watch all of that on our live stream on YouTube. Pep Guardiola says goodbye to us, but not goodbye to his players yet. That's all from this final live training session from Munich 7 Street. We hope you enjoyed these live training sessions and the coverage that we provided you with this season. Again, it's not quite over yet, but in a couple of days we're also going to say goodbye and take a summer break, and then July 1st the action begins here as well. July 11th, the national team players will join their teammates again. Who that will be remains to be seen, depending on who will still play. National games, Manuel Neuer practicing obviously to maybe help Bayern Munich in midfield or in attack next season. Might be an option. And then make sure also to stay tuned to the summer program, which is already on our website. A few dates, and of course that will be enhanced. We will keep you informed with everything that goes on throughout the summer break as well. Maybe by then Manuel Neuer will have achieved promotion under Pep Guardiola from goalkeeper to striker. That's all from here. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.
Weil sie kein Geld haben. Ich bin allgemein kein Ich mag einfach, ich habe jetzt kein Hass auf irgendwelche Mannschaften. Paul, das ist mal wichtig.
Gehen wir jetzt?
Das war wieder klar, dass man kaputt hat. Ja, Jungs, das war auch so. Ja. Ich habe halt eine Akademie. Arno!